What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Criterion Corner, where I pick Criterion Collection films in my personal collection and talk about why I think you should watch them and give you some recommendations to ones that maybe you haven't seen or ones that have been on your list that you're looking forward to watching. And today you're going to get a treat. Today you're going to get a 3-in-1. These are 3 films, are a trilogy, but they are almost impossible to talk about without talking about each one. I will probably be getting into spoilery territory. It's difficult to talk about this whole trilogy without it, so if you haven't seen it, this is my glowing recommendation to watch these films because they are just so incredibly impactful and powerful. And the film series I'm going to be talking about today is the Before Trilogy from Richard Linklater. The cornerstone of director Richard Linklater's career-long exploration of cinematic time, this celebrated 3-part romance captures a relationship as it begins again, deepens, and strains over the course of almost 2 decades, chronicling the love of Céline, played by Julie Delpy, and Jesse, Ethan Hawke, from their first meeting as idealistic 20-somethings to the disillusionments they face together in middle age. The Before Trilogy also serves as a document of boundary pushing and the extraordinarily intimate collaboration between directors and actors as Delpy and Hawke imbue their characters with a sense of lived-in experience and age on screen along with them. So, the Before Trilogy is something that has been on my list for a very long time. It's something that I had not watched until recently because of a glowing recommendation from my friend Nate, who constantly is recommending me wonderful films that have either been on my list for a while or I haven't seen them. The Before Trilogy is probably my favorite trilogy of films that has ever existed. I think that is some of the best character writing that I've ever seen in a movie. And as the description states, the first film in the series, Before Sunrise, is where our characters are introduced to each other on a train. And they're both on this train, and Ethan Hawke and Julie Delpy are sitting different parts of the train from each other, and they end up having this conversation together. And Ethan Hawke gets really vulnerable, and after they talk for a really long period of time, he says, "Hey, how about you just come into town with me and run around in the middle of Europe and just see where the day takes us," because they clearly have this chemistry together and it's just amazing. And what you get from then on is this beautiful set pieces of cinematography where they're running around in Europe together. In Vienna specifically, they're running around and getting to know each other and being incredibly vulnerable and not having these typical reservations that you have when you meet someone for the first time because they don't know how long they're going to see each other for and they don't know how long it's going to last. And so they just decide to kind of throw caution to the wind, and it's this really interesting look at young love and building this relationship over a night, and it is truly one of the most beautiful films I've ever seen. The dialogue in it is so incredibly realistic, and it just doesn't even feel like it's scripted. It feels like Linklater just let Ethan Hawke and Julie Delpy just talk to each other at times. It's just so natural back and forth, and these long take sequences in all 3 of these films are just like mind-bogglingly incredible, that these actors have this rapport with one another that just feels so realistic. And I love how each film is kind of like a milestone in a relationship. This first movie is very much about young love, looking at another person for who they are, understanding each element of them, asking questions about them, learning about each other, and building off of that. And I think it's amazing. And when I watched it, I was just in such awe of Ethan Hawke and Julie Delpy's performances because they are so engaged with one another and their interactions are so amazing. And it's just something that I'll never forget watching that the first time. And it's something I'll never forget watching it for the 20th time. And it's so amazing. And the way the film ends, they've had this beautiful night together. They've gone to a concert together, gotten food together, explored the city together, and they go to a train because they have to leave, and Ethan Hawke's got to catch his plane, Julie Delpy has to go, and they say, let's meet up several years from now. And they set a time together when they're going to come back and meet up with each other. And there's just this really heartbreaking moment of these 2 people who have built this incredible relationship over this one night together, and will they ever see each other again? It's just really impactful in the way that it ends. And then you move 10 years later to Before Sunset, which it's 10 years later. Ethan Hawke is married. He's on a book tour because his book is doing really well, which is a book that he wrote about Julie Delpy. And he's at a bookstore and she finds out that he's there. And she meets up with him and it's them walking around the city together, and Ethan Hawke being very vulnerable about how he has a son. His relationship with his wife is not good. They're on the verge of separating. Julie Delpy talking about the relationship that she had and kind of just being completely open and vulnerable and totally 100% with each other in that moment, and finding out why at the time period that they were supposed to meet with each other again, that neither one of them came back, and the things in their lives that impacted one another that made them not be able to meet up. And it's the same as the first film, with these beautiful long take sequences of dialogue between one another. And there's so many subtle nuances in the film. One of the things is Ethan Hawke, very early in the film while they're talking, he's constantly playing with his wedding ring on his hand. And to me, it spoke so many more volumes than when he gives an expositional dialogue sequence of telling why his relationship with his wife is so broken. There's also this scene where Julie Delpy is smoking a cigarette and he asks her to bum a cigarette off of her, and the way that he takes it and lights it and smokes it is like a person who was smoking for a really long time who hasn't touched a cigarette in forever. And it's like the nerves and the anxiety of being around this person who you clearly care for more than anything in the world, and being exposed to them and caring for them. And this film has the briefest runtime of the three, but I feel like it's one of the most impactful in the sense that it's these people who have met up after a long period of time. They travel the city together, and the film ends on this note of Julie Delpy playing Ethan Hawke this song and saying, "Hey, you're gonna miss your flight." And it's so beautiful, and it made me smile like an idiot through it, and it's just incredible, and it builds on that relationship even more. And the trilogy ends on Before Midnight, which is years later after this, where they are married and they have children, and it's exactly what you as the viewer wanted, was the two of them to end up together, but their relationship is seemingly kind of pulling apart. And all of these little elements that happen to couples who are strongest couples in the world that go through this shit, and watching them pull apart, and the arguments that they have in this film are so realistic that it's just like you hurt so bad because you watch two films with these characters who you love and care for so deeply that it's really difficult to watch, and it pulls at you and it makes you feel sick. And the chemistry between Ethan Hawke and Julie Delpy over this immense amount of time is amazing. And they are these films. They bleed these films, and they do such an amazing job. And I think Before Midnight is my favorite of the three. And I know a lot of people think completely different, but the thing I love about it is that when the real world hits, things suck and life gets hard. And even with the best people in the world who love each other more than anything in the world, shit happens and life becomes difficult. There is this amazing sequence on vacation with their kids, and these people that they're vacationing with get them a hotel so that they can be together one night. And there's this long take sequence where they're in this hotel together, and they go from having sex to starting to have sex to getting into an argument about something, to where Julie Delpy's like naked, Ethan Hawke's like down to like his boxers, and they both start putting clothes back on throughout this entire argument, and you just feel like you're in the room with them and watching something that you shouldn't really be watching as a viewer, which is this really intimate moment between these two people going through something really horrible and hard, feeling both sides of their argument, understanding where both of them are coming from, and hurting because you just kind of want to jump in there and solve the issues for them. And watching the whole thing take place is just one of the best pieces of cinema I've ever seen. And the way it closes is absolutely beautiful. I think that it is a perfect trilogy to watching, budding romance, blossoming romance, to having that over time, seeing these two people who really love each other go through the trials and tribulations that most couples go through, and it is just a masterpiece, and I say that 100%. These are 3 of the best films ever made and my favorite trilogy of all time. So have you seen the Before Trilogy? Do you love it? Do you hate it? Leave me a comment down below and let me know what you think. I think these are 3 perfect films that every time I watch them, I'm going to love them more and more. As always, if you can like the video and subscribe to the channel, it helps me out a lot and lets me know the type of content you're looking for. I'm always putting out new videos, excited to get new material out there for you, and look forward to getting new videos up soon. Thanks so much for watching, everybody, and have a great rest of your day.